I'd like to bring this regular meeting of council to order, held Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022. I'd like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Inkakatmuks and Syilx people. There are no late items that I'm aware of. We have public input, and Ginny, as you walk by the mic, can you just... And can you give your name and address, please, Ginny, for the record?
Ginny Prowal, 2070 Aspen Street. This is a thank you to the mayor and council, all the city staff, public works, and every company that has moved into town to help us clean up and get going again. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have regular council meeting minutes, March 8th, 2022. I need a mover and a seconder. Etchart and Christofferson. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? None. You're in favor? There is no public hearing. There is no delegations or recognitions. We move on to unfinished business, which is a notice of motion from Councillor Luck, who has announced or who has expressed his regrets for this meeting. He won't be here, so we'll just add it to the April 5th meeting when he is expected to be back. And 7.2, conference attendance and revised policy. Mr. Lois.
Thank you, Worship. This is the follow-up from the last meeting. As you probably recall, we brought forward a report asking who wanted to attend certain conferences as was permitted under the conference attendance policy, and council made clear their view that that policy had been changed in the past, and I can give you the delightful news that you had indeed instructed that it be changed 4 years ago. And we would now like to give you the opportunity to do that. Unfortunately, the Policy Review Committee never had any recommendations on this come forward to Council. And so the text remains unchanged as it was. I've watched the meeting where you last discussed this, as I promised I'd research, and the big thing that you wanted to look at that point was the discrepancy in the numbers of councillors available, particularly with FCM, saying that because there were 6 elected councillors and only 4 years in a council term, a policy that said the mayor and a single councillor could attend in any given year did not allow for all elected members to attend over the course of a term of office. If you want to make simply that change, then the staff report makes a couple of proposals in there. For example, that you could simply increase it to the mayor and 2 councillors, or you could make the policy that the mayor would have the option of giving up their seat. The downside of that one would be that the mayor could then choose to not do that in any given term, and so the numbers still wouldn't stack up. It essentially depends on how minor a change you would want to make as council. There are very small financial implications to this because, of course, attending conferences out of town does have cost. Those costs vary depending on, so say, attending one in Kamloops is always going to be cheaper than one in Quebec. But there, yeah, as I say, it's entirely up to you, essentially, what you want to do with this, just cognizant of the, say, knock-on impacts that it would have. We will take direction from council on what you would like.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Lois? Okay, no questions for Mr. Lois. That means we're needing to have a motion on the table in order to discuss this policy. There's a couple of options here. One of them is to increase the spaces available by default at FAM before a further resolution is required, and that would be, we need to choose one. I believe our last discussion said mayor and up to 2 councillors per meeting, and that gave up to, which meant everyone had an opportunity to go. that the mayor and up to 2 councillors would go to every FCM. Well, not every, I mean, optional. Going to the FCMs, you don't, it's not a requirement. That's what we were working on based on the first time we went to the FCM with the mayor and 2 councillors, which was fair. I'm sorry, it wasn't fair. It was Luck and Etchart. Councillor, who do I have? Councillor Etchart, okay. I'm still not at your, if I'd push the right button, I bet I'd get it. There you are.
I think our system was jinxed after
No.
all the praising we received pre-meeting.
I'd like to blame it on the system, however.
Yeah, we'll blame it on the system.
I think it was
Yeah.
the finger.
I think that I would like to move motion number 1. Council can increase the spaces available by default at FCM before further resolutions required, simply because that was the intent that we had planned so that we all had the opportunity to go. But that would be, from what I remember of those conversations that we had then, so that people could have the opportunity. I know some people have maybe expressed that they don't necessarily want to go, and we don't have to necessarily send both, but
Right.
Having the spaces available, I don't know that we would ever necessarily send both and the mayor, but I found that when Councillor Luck and myself went to Quebec, there was lots of different information that we had gotten to receive there. So anyway, that's all I had to say about that.
So you are moving, I'm not sure what spaces available by default actually means. I think Mr. Lewis was actually asking us to pick an option.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, if this was your intent, then I would suggest you make a motion that the conference attendance policy be amended so that the Southern Interior Local Government Association line of the table, oh my goodness, sorry.
Yeah.
I'll get the right line. So the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, FCM, line of the table reads mayor and up to 2 councillors.
That's what you were trying to say? Yeah. Okay. And I need a seconder for that.
I'll second it.
Thank you. And now you're on, Councillor Christopherson.
Well, that was basically, my question was to clarify that was going to be the motion, and it is, so I seconded it,
Okay.
and I'm in favor of it.
Anybody else want to speak to this? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All in favor? Opposed? None. Carried. And there's also an option for anyone who wants to go to another option to put your name forward. Okay. There was an LGLA one coming up that I was sure somebody had asked me about it. So are you still intent on wanting to go to that? If so, you need to put your name forward. Okay. And that's available to anyone else too. We did, yes. We went as a full council. And that was down, I don't know when it was, but it was a few years back. Are you wanting to go to that? It's April 5th and 6th, I believe. If so, you need to put your name forward so that the finances can follow, and that. Okay, that's FCM. We can now send 2 people. Oh, are you there?
The LGLA meeting that we went to was in January 23rd, 2019, and that's where they had some of the legal training, and they had the lawyer there, and then different guest speakers, the ones that could show up because it was weather issues. And when we had that one, February the 6th, 2020 in Richmond, they had a lot of detailed information that we were supposed to have at the January 2019 meeting. And I just found that there was a lot of information and it was really productive. But yeah. And I would recommend going to that one, but I know I can't go this time. Thanks.
Okay, I'm hearing you for the FCM, and there's up to 2 according to policy. If we end up getting more this year, I don't mind bringing it forward because we've had 2 years where council has not gone to this. So just leaving that out there. But if we have a need to tell somebody, can we tell Greg over the next little while? Okay, thank you. Did we vote on this? Yes, we did. Moving on to 7.3, strategic focus areas update. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll keep my update here short, as this was the subject of a committee of the whole with council. The intent for this update is really to reflect the changes that have happened since the document was updated in August of last year. The document was designed to be to see us through the end of 2022 with what council's focus areas that you had set out were, and even that was an update from a document that you had prior prepared in 2019. The reason for bringing it forward and for staff making recommendations at that committee of the whole meeting was twofold. One, because there are significant amounts of time that we didn't allocate to projects as we were allocating it to flood response and recovery. But the second is that in some instances, priorities have naturally changed as a result of that same event. And so we felt it was important to bring this forward to you for your review and direction at this time.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Smith? I'm hearing humming, but no questions. Okay. Can I have a mover or a second then to adopt the revised strategic plan? Or if somebody has a pressing need to amend, please. Okay. Councillor Fair and Councillor Christofferson. And anybody want to debate this issue? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? None. Carried. Now we move on to bylaws. 8.1, the official community plan amendment bylaw 2330 and zoning amendment bylaw 2329, first and second readings. Ms. Bradshaw, can you give a staff report? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a fairly long report, so I'll try and keep it short. Staff have prepared an official community plan amendment bylaw, which outlines 1 proposed change, and a zoning amendment bylaw, which outlines 96 proposed changes. All of these changes are outlined in detail, including an explanation of the rationale in attachment 3. The official community plan amendment bylaw consists of deleting the temporary use section, which will enable this to be added to the zoning bylaw. And the zoning amendment bylaw consists of multiple adjustments or additions, corrections, formatting changes, and the purpose of these changes is to remedy errors, improve usability and consistency, and make changes or additions as per recommendations from internal departments or outside agencies. Additionally, I'd like to note that staff are aware that Section 4.30 floodplain regulations and Schedule B floodplain map within the zoning bylaw will need to be amended. Amendments to these regulations and map will need to be prepared subject to grant or operational funding following the receipt of updated floodplain data and information on any diking works. So I'll just go through and highlight a few of the proposed zoning amendments that consist of a bit more than just fixing errors or adjusting wording for clarification. So, proposed amendment number 8, brewing and distilling, is proposed to be changed to brewing and distilling craft. This will include a limit to the maximum total gross floor area and total area for manufacturing. The purpose here is to ensure that the use is scaled appropriately and discourage high water consumption. Proposed amendment number 19 is an addition to the prohibited uses section, which would prohibit any use that is water consumption intensive, as determined by the development improving officer. Having this be determined by the approving officer allows for some flexibility as technologies and industries change and adapt to different concerns around water conservation. Proposed amendment number 27 is an addition which states if a new building's exterior sidewall is adjacent to a vacant parcel or within 2.4 meters of a building on an abutting parcel and will be taller than the neighboring building by at least 1 story, the new building's blank wall or firewall may be required to include a mural at the discretion of the development approving officer. The purpose here is to reduce the occurrence of blank walls, encourage vibrancy, and add visual interest. Proposed amendment number 34 is a new regulation which would enable a single-family home swap. This would allow for the creation of additional housing units in existing residential neighborhoods while ensuring that existing residents can continue to live in their neighborhood. So with this, essentially a developer could partner with an existing homeowner to replace a single detached dwelling with a multiple unit dwelling, for example, a townhouse, and the developer would be able to receive a density bonus of 1 additional unit so long as a legal agreement is in place to enable the original homeowner to live in the new building. A few more here. Proposed amendment number 37 is proposing the addition of 2 new zones where backyard hens would be permitted, allowing backyard hens in the P2 and P3 zones, that's institutional and public use and post-secondary education, would allow for potential educational opportunities. And proposed amendment number 40 is we're removing the temporary use section in the OCP and proposing to add it to the zoning bylaw. So currently only commercial and industrial temporary uses are permitted on areas identified for commercial or industrial uses. Deleting this from the OCP and adding it into the zoning bylaw will allow for more flexibility when reviewing and approving temporary uses. And we wouldn't restrict it to only commercial or industrial temporary uses. Including residential may potentially enable the placement of flood recovering housing as well. And then the change is also proposing that the development approving authority is able to issue these temporary use permits. Proposed amendment 45 is a new section which will outline when parking requirements can be reduced for certain developments which are located in close proximity to a designated transit stop. So the addition of this section will encourage multiple modes of transportation such as public transit. And while this may reduce parking requirements in certain cases, developers or owners, of course, always still have the option of providing parking if desired. And proposed change number 51 is a proposal to adjust the landscaping section to include a requirement for a non-refundable fee in the amount of 2% of a landscape cost estimate. And this is just to help cover costs associated with conducting landscape inspections. There's a few changes, amendments number 80, 83, 89, 91, and 94, where we're adding a provision or adjusting a provision in one case to ensure that site development and placement of objects on parcels near the airport are in accordance with Transport Canada regulations for an AGN2 non-instrument aerodrome, which is the current classification of the airport. And Amendment 90, we're adding a discretionary use to the airport commercial zone, which would potentially allow 1 dwelling unit in an airport hangar, which would provide the option of a hangar minium. So an interesting concept there. And then in proposed amendments 92 and 93, these are some additions to the M1 light industrial zone. So potentially adding storage yard as a discretionary use to allow businesses the option to have outdoor storage or a laydown yard, and adding a dwelling unit in an industrial building as a discretionary use Similar to the hangar-minium concept, this would provide the option of a live-work type of development in light industrial bays. So for example, a loft dwelling unit in an industrial bay used as a film or artisan studio. And lastly, a proposed addition to the M2 heavy industrial zone is to include storage yard as a potential use as well. So again, just allowing those businesses in the M2 zone to have outdoor storage or a laydown yard. And I'm available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Bradshaw? Councillor Richard.
I had one question on section 41 about the no person may park or store their commercial vehicle, truck, bus, motorhome, camper, trailer, having the construction equipment. So a lot of people are short on room, and sometimes they have their work van and they bring it home with them. So would that also apply that way? Because sometimes it's like the definition of material. It may not be that they have a lot in there, but they might have some supplies in the work vehicle and they park at home. So the way I read that is you can't park the work vehicle at home. Is that how that's intended, or?
Ms. Bradshaw.
So this is just a portion of that one provision.
Okay.
There is a part where it says except, and then it lists a number of exceptions to that. The change we're proposing here is to include the term utility trailer, just because in many cases it's not considered one of the other pieces of equipment or vehicles that are listed there. So it was just to improve clarity in that aspect.
Okay.
But we're not changing anything that's outlined in the exceptions.
Okay.
That's currently existing.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Questions for Ms. Bradshaw? Comments? You're not even going to comment on the hangar-minium or whatever that word was called? We learn new words all the time. Councillor.
Well, concerning the hangar-minium, that was a point that was brought up several meetings ago with the airport committee as a viable option out there to provide some accommodations for people that use the airport consistently, flying to and from and so on, that occasionally it's nice to be able to have a stopover before you continue your flight. And so I was interested when I noticed it in here that we've made it possible, or we're thinking of making it possible. Yeah.
We may or may not make it possible. Yeah, and having said that, I appreciate the fact that staff, we've recently amended the zoning bylaw in whole, and already we've got a few areas that we want changed, and we've actually changed them, attempting to change them, and I like that. Did you have another? Councillor Richard?
Well, I just like some of the revisions where we can have some dwelling units above a commercial space, because if a person has a building and they can develop the upstairs area, then we can get more density out of buildings that are already there. So no, I think it's great for that. Thank you.
And Councillor Christofferson.
Yes, the section 34 there, the provision allows for a single-family home swap. Is there a lot size requirement there? I mean, we've got 25-foot lots, we've got 50-foot lots, we've got 75-foot lots, and so on. I was interested in sort of the concept of what is going on. Could we have a bit of bit more explanation on it?
Ms. Bradshaw.
Sure. So there's no lot size requirement. However, you would still need to comply with the regulations outlined in the zoning bylaw for that particular zone. So the increase is just in one additional dwelling unit. So it's just an increase in density. The setback requirements and all other site requirements would still stand. So you would inherently be limited to some extent in that way. So essentially The concept with that provision is that in existing neighborhoods where you have lower density, if someone's looking to partner and increase the density, but they still want to stay in the neighborhood, it just provides that opportunity for someone to pair up with a developer and stay in their existing location as well. So the developer gets to make a profit essentially, and the homeowner would get to stay in that location, in that additional dwelling unit that's provided through this
It's a really,
provision.
really interesting concept. I, in my devious mind, wonder whether developers would take that opportunity perhaps to buy up a section of a city lot or something and put in a lot of townhouse type things, which probably fits into this.
Mr. Smith, you're itching to answer that one.
I think that what you'll find is it's in no way devious. This is extremely common practice. If you move about 2.5 hours south from us here, you've probably heard the term land assembly, and oftentimes what happens when someone forms a land assembly is there's 5 different lots that the developer will buy up, consolidate, but they will make provisions to ensure that all of those homeowners will have a unit in that development as part of the land assembly package. Those can become pretty sweet deals there because it's a very competitive process for increasing density in some of these regions. We're probably not necessarily at that spot in terms of I think the pressure for land assemblies and uplift in zoning. That being said, this is really about trying to provide and facilitate options that would allow for redevelopment to occur, as we are starting to see the land be developed in our community, and these types of solutions will become more popular as that happens. So yeah, huge kudos to the team on identifying opportunities like that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting concept, and I'm sure that some people will be quite interested in it. I do see it as having a possibility of really changing neighborhoods. But that's a sign of the times too. So thank you.
Ms. Bradshaw, did you want to add to that? No? Okay. Councillor Etchart.
So I just have a question then. If we have a house swap on an R2 zone lot and somebody wants to take advantage of that, would then they have to demolish a dwelling and then to build a multifamily and maybe stratify? Because I'm thinking, well, how would you have one unit for the homeowner and the other unit for the developer? Wouldn't it have to be stratified so that you'd have a separate title? You could sell one. I'm just trying to understand it in a practical sense for me.
Ms. Bradshaw.
Yeah, I think there's a few options for sure. That's one way to do it. Of course, this would we indicated in the provision that it would be outlined in a housing agreement or covenant of some sort. So there would be some legal agreement associated with this. So whether the homeowner gets to purchase, or they receive a lot, or one of the townhome units, or whether it's a rental sort of situation, I think that could be worked out case by case as well. Yeah, so there's a lot of flexibility in that.
Yeah, it gives options more than they had anyway.
Councillor White.
I think.
Mr. MacArthur.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I was just going to give an example to elaborate. If you have an R2 lot, for example, a sort of standard 50 by 120 lot in the R2 zone, you can build a triplex on that parcel under our zoning bylaw. So this would allow a developer to do a fourplex, and one of those units would be. So it's not a huge density increase from a 3 to a 4, because you can already do the threeplex. But what it does allow is for those residents to potentially downsize. Maybe they have a home that it's too big for them at this point, or maybe they are wanting to realize, that their property could be used for some more housing for the community, right? It's, more of a, thinking about the community and how we can have homes for more people. And so this would allow for 4 units instead of 3, for example, in the R2 zone. And that can be either done through strata, as you mentioned, or through freehold, because you can subdivide parcels for townhomes into narrow lots and have one building, and the building is actually divided into separate freehold parcels. So there's a couple ways of doing that. So, yeah.
But it has to be with the developer, not a family member, or Mr. MacArthur.
Yeah, so it would be an agreement, and so that agreement could be with whomever wanted to develop that property. So if that happened to be a family member, I suppose that could work, but there would be an actual legal agreement in place, whether it's a housing agreement or a covenant on title, so that future homeowners are also bound by that agreement.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor White.
I just have a question about in number 27, 4.12.3. The mural on the side of a building that abuts to a empty parcel of land. Does the developer or the builder not have any say in what goes on there or for that mural?
Mr. MacArthur.
Yeah, the content of the mural would be up to the building owner, the property owner, and the issue here is now that we have higher zones for higher buildings, especially in our downtown, and we have zero lot line setbacks in our downtown. So if you have an internal lot, when you build that taller building, the sides of the building, if you build right to the parcel lines, those have to be firewalls, so you wouldn't have windows in them, so you could have potentially a blank wall. Let's say if someone builds a 4-story building and it's next to a 1-story building, you could have a couple stories there of a blank wall. And so the intention here is to ensure that looks nicer than a blank brick or concrete wall, while until at some point in future the next the adjacent building is redeveloped into a taller building, and so and then of course the whole mural conversation comes about removing the murals and all of that. So obviously we've talked about having removable murals as the preferred option.
Yeah.
But again, that would be up to the property owner.
So it's basically beautification.
It's beautification. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
And from my take, the gist of the rest of the changes are building up, not so much out, but increasing our density, not by going out and spreading out, but by moving upward. Councillor White, did you have another comment? Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. It's not just a question. Are you asking for movers and seconders, Mr. Lewis?
Probably so, Your Worship. I don't know if we can begin to this.
Thank you. I need a motion that council give first reading to official community plan amendment bylaw number 2330, 2022. Christopherson Etchart, and any comments on this first reading? All in favor? Opposed? None? Carried. And I need a mover and a seconder that council gives second reading to official community plan amendment bylaw number 2330, 2022. Etchart and Fair, any comments on this one? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? None. And that council give first reading to the zoning amendment bylaw number 2329, 2022. I need a mover and a seconder. Etchart Christopherson, and any comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? None. And that council gives second reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 2329, 2022. Mover and seconder, please. Etchart White, and any errors or omissions? Any comments? Sorry, any comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, none. And that council directs staff to schedule a public hearing. Christopherson, Fair, and all in favor? Opposed, none, carried. Wow, just about there. There is no new business. Is there any new notices of motion? Okay, I don't see any. Reports from council. What a quiet group tonight. Well, I have a thank you to Tourism Nicola Valley, Experience Nicola Valley, the whole, what are they called? EH8A Canada Marketing Group, and the Rotary Club, along with Kenny Hess, founder of Rock and River Music Festival. Just a huge thank you for putting on this telethon on behalf of the citizens of Merritt, and I just think it's a great thing. The evening brought in, I think, 850,000, but that's not our full portion. Is that right?
No.
Okay.
Actually, we just don't know yesterday.
Okay, and I know it's been open it will be open for up to 2 months to donate, and the goal is 2 million. So we have a ways to go, and it's still open, and I just encourage everyone to donate when and where they can. So, and thank you, Melva, for being a big part of that. We appreciate it. Councillor White. We go on to information items, and there is a letter from Josh Dirksen, and we are being asked, what do we think of this letter? And we have a staff response, so there is a potential for a motion to proceed. And we need somebody to talk. This motion is about, or this whole issue was about putting EV vehicles on the road less than. Yes, thank you. Mr. MacArthur, could you give us the gist of your report, please? Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this was a fantastic letter from one of our residents wanting council and staff to explore the electric kick scooter pilot project that the province of BC is currently running, and 8 other municipalities are currently part of the program. So staff did reach out to the province about whether they are still taking applicants and what that would mean. We did actually get a response right after this report was submitted, so I do have some more information. There's an application form, etc. But staff would like to explore a bit more, talk to some of the other municipalities that have implemented it, find out what that means for financial or capacity for a municipality to take on this pilot project, and also logistically what this would mean. One of the questions on the application form is really around how you would implement it, whether we would have separate lanes or they're shared with the vehicles, etc. So having Public Works and Development Services have a chat around that as well to kind of work out some of those details would be great. So staff would appreciate the opportunity to do a bit more research and exploring on this if council so directs us to do so.
So yes. Councillor White? Okay. And White and Christopherson. And did you want to? Yes, we have no information.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to confirm, this is to move to that council direct staff to undertake further research on this information item and to report back with recommendations.
Yes. So
Thank
we're
you.
not asking to take action at this point, we're asking for staff to research it
further
and
staff
bring it back
report.
to us. And you still want to move that?
Yep.
You still want to second that? Okay. And anyone want to speak to this? Councillor Etchart.
I think the idea of this is positive, especially if you're trying to encourage people for a healthier lifestyle and active transportation. But with all the different things going on, I'm just kind of wondering when this will happen with all their paths and everything like that. I like the idea of it because you see in the cities people having all their scooters all over the place, and I support it. I'm just not seeing all the spaces where you can really ride on the side of the road in so many spots around town. But I think it's great, but we don't have shared lanes. That's the only thing I'm kind of worried about.
Councillor Christopherson.
Councillor Etchart kind of alluded to just the safety aspect of making sure, because I'm in favor of it. I think it's a good option, but I'm also a little leery when I go shopping and somebody goes whizzing behind my car that has no clue of what they're doing, especially when you're backing up and so on. So safety is something that I would want to make sure is factored into this. You know, where do you drive on the road? Similar to bicycles, I would assume, but just some questions on the safety aspect of it all.
And just to qualify that comment, when you were talking about safety and backing up, you meant the scooter would have been the problem, not the driver. I'm kidding.
It just scares me when I'm backing out of a space and all of a sudden a little scooter that you really can't see unless they've got a little flag waving happens to zip across your course because they think they can get someplace fast.
Thank you. Councillor Fair.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very excited to see us exploring this possibility. I think it's one of many types of ways that communities and small cities and big cities can encourage the use of not only active transportation, but alternative modes of transportation. And considering that this is a pilot project, I think there's a lot to learn from that in how this can and will, I think, be done safely in cities. So I'm excited about it, and I think it represents the kind of thing that we're just going to see more and more of as time goes on. So I'm in favor of it.
Thanks. And Councillor White.
Well, the scooter kind of operates the same as an e-bike, does it not? Like, sort of. So it's just a little smaller. So. No, but you don't pedal the e-bike too if you get the motor going. But what I'm saying is they're both the same speed, basically.
I'm not the expert on e-scooters, but
Well, I think in my head, I don't think it's any different than an e-bike or riding a bike down the lane or up the hill. So I think we should investigate it.
And Mr. MacArthur.
Yeah, and just to answer Councillor White's question there, the pilot project requires that the e-scooters cannot go over 24 kilometers per hour. So that's what the actual bikes would be, or scooters would be limited to 24 kilometers per hour, maximum.
Councillor Etchart, and then Mr. Smith.
Well, at $1.92 a liter for gas, I think a lot of people are going to be looking at the e-scooter as a very viable mode of transportation. You see people loading up on there trying to save money. So, I mean, for that reason alone, it's worth exploring. But, yeah, I mean, there'll be a lot of things. We just have to watch our crosswalks and make sure they're well lit so nobody gets run over, because it's a concern. some people don't necessarily watch where they're going before they cross into traffic in front of a logging truck and things that I've seen, unfortunately. But yeah, so there's concerns that way, but I think it's great for people. So saving money and getting out there, being more active. Thanks.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. 2 points that I wanted to make. The first, in relation to, is a bike the same as a scooter? That was actually one of, when they came out with this, that was one of the main points that they wanted to confirm through this pilot project is this closer to a bike, and will people follow standard biking rules and practices when they're on a zippy little scooter? Or is this going to fall more in line with what happens when people get out there with skateboards and longboards, where they tend to be up and all over the place a little bit more? I happen to think that if you do skateboarding or longboarding responsibly, it can be the exact same, but that's part of what this is looking at, is what's going to happen when you introduce this new device. I think that so far so good, but that's what the pilot project will really prove out. The second thing that I wanted to say is council is well aware, and I actually think it's one of the points of pride in terms of planning that has come over the past couple of years. Our active transportation plan in the city of Merritt is very strong. It's one of the strongest plans that we have in place right now, I would say. Feel very comfortable in terms of what that looks like, how it could potentially develop and build out. And the more initiatives like this, if we were to bring them on, and again, there's still a lot of questions that we would need to answer, I think that it only helps your argument when it comes to provincial or federal funding for active transportation projects, because it shows that not only do you have a plan in place, not only have you been implementing some of those projects, but you're actively taking steps towards exploring alternate modes of transportation to create a more viable community. And as Councillor Etchart said, part of it's gas prices, part of it's reducing parking stalls, and all of these different things that you guys have talked about many times in the past. And so I think it's a great thing to be exploring, particularly as you'll note that the 8 communities that are on there, the smallest one has a population of over 100,000 still. So this would be a totally different ball game for us. I think Nanaimo is the smallest one. That might not be true. One of the lower mainland ones might be a little smaller, but
We won't hold you to the number.
no, I think I'm going to be off. Vernon's smaller.
And Councillor Fair.
Thank you. Yes, I did just want to mention, as Councillor White asked or suggested, that they might be the same sort of designation as an e-bike. There is one difference. 24 kilometers per hour is the maximum for an e-scooter, whereas e-bikes are 32 kilometers per hour. So, but I think that's a good point, because it raises the question of, where you're going to put each vehicle, and are you going to separate them? And then the question comes, does that mean developing more segregated lanes? Or another option could be, and I'll cut myself off after this, as was done in Banff, they lowered the speed limit to 30 kilometers per hour throughout the city. And then all active transportation vehicles were allowed to use the roads together. So I think there's many, many options and different ways to make this work.
Thank you. And I was going to also mention, it's not exactly the same thing, but Chase has a pilot project going on with their golf carts, and they are even much lower. I don't know how fast they go. I thought I could run faster than some of them, but maybe not. I want to see it. No. Right. Nobody's laughing at that comment, right? Anyways, there's also a danger there. I know that we were driving through the city of Chase one day, town of Chase, and there was a little golf cart that came along and just about ran into us. And the person that was in the car said to me, "Oh, that's the previous mayor," or one of the previous mayors. So yeah,
Carts are 32 kilometers an hour as well.
Are they really? Huh. Okay. What do I know? I maybe can't run that fast. I take that back. I'm not going to be challenged on that. Okay. So we have a motion on the table and a mayor who doesn't know speed. So let's call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Reichardt, did you have another comment?
Have the race challenge with the mayor.
No.
The town would love it. We'll make a video.
I'm not even going to go there, I don't think. Now, I had one other comment, and I can't think of what it was. I had missed, oh, I know what it was. I had an email from a resident who said, thank you to staff and everyone that helped arrange for the light that is on Blackwell and Vote. So thank you to staff for making that happen. I see no other comments or no other agenda items, so I'm going. Pardon me? Oh, there's another. Oh, yes. Well, he was on the floor for so long tonight. Oh, I apologize, Mr. MacArthur. Your report, please.
We could make this short and you could just applaud staff for what we did last year. That would probably work.
That would absolutely work.
No, in all seriousness though, I'm really, really proud of Development Services staff for the work they put in 2021. Obviously it was a challenging year to end the year, but it was also challenging through the year because we did have some positions that were unfilled for a number of months, and people really had to pick up the slack, and the team really did that well, and so yeah, couldn't be prouder of Development Services staff. The group of very skilled, intelligent, and hardworking people, and yeah, I think the numbers in this report reflect that. Obviously, this is just high level, and there will be more in the annual report, but just wanted to give a bit of an update on last year.
And you don't have to tell me twice, but you might have to remind me that yes, 30 million in 1 year, which is a building year on record for the city of Merritt. And I think you can hear all of council say how proud we are of that Development Services Department. And thank you, Dawn, for pulling that department together. And I know the rest of the team works with you as well in that. So kudos to a lot of the staff for pulling it together. We issued 93 new units of housing and $30 million in construction value. So this is incredible for the city of Merritt. Thank you, and thank your team for us. And know that we are proud of the team.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Having seen this last report and asking staff, there is nothing else on this agenda? Thank you, Mr. Lois. I will terminate this meeting.